Well, to be honest, these calls happen on a regular basis in any case, so this is anything special. What is really important to realize is that von der Leyen isn't going to be the one who dictates where the EU exports its goods. That's going to be businesses in the EU, and it's going to be demand coming from those who buy those products. So the EU companies that are currently operating have already created their forecasts and created their business plans to find out where would be the best export markets for them. And for, as they see, trading amongst themselves is probably the biggest market within the EU, and then externally it's going to be China, it's going to be the United States, depending again on what the product is. Finished products typically go towards the US, and raw materials, so far as what the EU does create in terms of raw materials and agriculture, goes towards China. So reorienting your trade from the US, which is a very different market compared to China, is going to be, I think, difficult. But at the end of the day, what the EU should be doing is listening to businesses to find out what they could be doing to support them better. And also, if China is a good alternative, they should be focusing their attentions in diversifying it, yes, now and into the future too.
Right, and Klisman, that reference there by von der Leyen talking about diversifying the trade relationship, is that an indication that we could see some kind of a realignment in the China-EU trade relationship?
That's really early to tell right now, because what Trump is doing isn't anything new. You must remember that this has been his stance for the last 40 years or so, and he's been saying that he's going to be putting these tariffs on from even before he was elected for the second term. He did it during his first term with steel and aluminium towards China, and he's just doubling down on this into his second term. So the way in which businesses respond is going to be dependent on what exactly that business does, who their business partners are, and who they export to, and also what their positions are in those parts of the world, and how they can receive more product from them, and if non-tariff barrier is going to be an issue for them to export more products to other parts of the world.
Gita Werjuan, President Klisman Murati, there was one other development over the past few days which might need a bit of explanation, and that is Germany is reportedly considering removing its gold reserves from the Federal Reserve in New York. Germany stores about 1,200 tons of gold there. It's about 30% of its total reserves. And German leaders have cited Washington's unpredictability, they say, as the reason for this move. What does it mean? What are the implications of this?
I really don't know, because, I mean, this isn't any kind of retaliation to what Trump is doing at all, I don't think. I mean, many countries, not only Germany, other countries have onshored their gold reserves historically over the last 10 years or so. I think gold is becoming a much more valuable asset. It's a hedge against sort of the geopolitical risk we're seeing in the world. And we're seeing a lot of focus, not only on Germany, but many of the countries which are either buying more gold or storing it onshore: Turkey, Indonesia, Russia, China, and Poland, a bunch of others which are doing this much more so. So this is a growing trend that we have been seeing happening before these tariffs were put into place. So I want to connect the two as distinctly as that question may suggest. What the EU really needs to do is really focus on what they want to do next. That's the biggest question for them. Because if they try to do tit-for-tat, it's not going to really work, because it's not as if the EU produces many goods that they sell to the US as a proportion of what they sell to each other in any case. And if they do tax things, that they first will have to agree on a vote, which they'll do tomorrow. So we'll see what the result of that is. But Europe has been facing lagging growth for a long time, and this extra sort of pressure point on them is just something else they have to worry about, because domestic growth, employment, other social economic issues are only growing in that region. And I don't think the leadership in Europe has a unified response to this, despite things like the Draghi report that's come out, I think, either earlier this year or last year, that explained what the EU needs to do. I don't think we won't see much in terms of positive moves forward from the EU on that front. So this gold thing with Germany, I don't think is as distinctly related to tariffs, but it is a trend, to wrap up, that we're seeing with many other countries around the world.
All right, Gita, speaking